I can hear you. I can't now.
Daniel, give me the 2 thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Perfect. Okay. About 5 minutes, we'll try and bring you in.
Sounds good.
All right, awesome. I would like to officially welcome you to Concord Junior High School. My name is Rob Zook. I'm principal here at Junior High. And I'd like to welcome everybody to the HSDL conference. This is our 2nd year that we hosted it. Just out of curiosity, how many of you were here last year? Perfect, not very many. That's great. So we had a lot of new attendees. It's a good problem when we have to get extra seats down here, so that means we have a lot of kids here. So we are very excited about today. I hope you are too. There's a lot of great workshops and sessions that are going to be led by students, all the way from 2nd grade up to high school. So we actually have 2nd graders leading a session. So I know they're really, yep, there they are. You guys want to wait to us? There they are, our 2nd graders. So they are extremely excited, but guys, I promise we'll be really nice to you. Okay? All right, I appreciate you being here. I do want to acknowledge just a couple of people before I turn it over to Mr. Jarecki. I do want to acknowledge our superintendent at the top, Mr. Trout, who has led us on our own digital journey. So he is here supporting us. Also, we have 3 digital learning specialists. We have Matt Jarecki, Tyler Stevens, and Kendra Devine, who is not in here at the moment. They all met, because Steve registered them all. Yeah, you've met Kendra, but all 3 of those folks are really responsible for putting the time and effort into getting this event going. So a lot of energy from them. We appreciate it. 2 other people I'd like to acknowledge for their services in green sweaters is Dwayne Waltrip, and beside him is Darcy Wallace. They are on our tech department, and they did a lot of behind the scenes work. So we can get all of them ahead before we get started. One of the coolest things about this conference, realized this last year. This is all student led. Talk about empowering kids. So we are super excited that our kids get an opportunity, that your kids get an opportunity to experience today. I hope you walk out of here today with some ideas and you're inspired, be creative, and implement in your own classrooms and so forth. But it is a great day. So we're excited to get going. So at this time, Matt, are you up? Yeah, we're good. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to one of our PLSs, Matt Gerlach. Oh, yeah. All right.
Okay, so as we've been kind of tweeting out and talking about it, let's see if this. Okay, good, thank you. Okay, perfect. Danny, you can hear me all right?
I hear
Perfect. All right. Okay, so before I introduce you to Daniel here, and you might just play with it as we go, I guess. Yes, I too, on behalf of EDLS, Tyler, and SU Panda, here, we cannot be more ecstatic that you are all here. Our job title basically is trying to empower teachers so that they can allow you students to do all these amazing things that you're going to see all day in all these presentations. So this is just a big highlight for us throughout the year. We cannot be more happy that you all are here. I want to get right to our keynote to be cognizant of his time. He is in San Francisco, right, Daniel?
Yep.
Okay, and so you thought you got up early this morning. Daniel got up quite early this morning to be with us. I'm going to let him pretty much tell you about himself. He's currently 19 years old, so some of you in the room may be, some of our high school people may be the same age as he is. I had the fortune of meeting him and not really knowing everything about him when I went to visit my son in California. They had done some projects together. So my son James says, hey, yeah, you need to talk to Daniel. He's a sharp guy. Go talk to him. Ask him what he's up to. And every once in a while I listen to my son, and I did, and it was great. So he fits perfectly with what the theme of this conference is and what we are hoping that you take out of this. That you, and I gotta be careful because there's a lot of it in here, that you don't always need us adults. Like the wonderful thing about technology is you have access to all this stuff that you don't need me for, or these adults in here. I know many of you have made a website, communicate with people all across the globe, done all kinds of cool things on your own. We want to be here to help you and support you and provide you with any resources we possibly can. But you are the ones that are driving the bus and can do these amazing things. And Daniel is a wonderful example of that. So Daniel, I'm going to put you up big here, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, first I want to start with thanking you all. Yeah, so I want to thank you all for coming. I've heard some of you even, coming from all across the state. And if I think this is really getting on a bus right now, it'd be even more. So I just wanted to say that's amazing. Yeah, so to just kind of start with things, just with a rough show of hands, who here is working on something they're really excited about that has to do with technology? Awesome. See, good hands up there. Yeah, so what we're going to talk about today, and as Matt kind of mentioned, throughout my life, from when I was in middle school to when I was in high school to when I eventually left high school to go do this stuff full time, there's been different parts that kind of changed my journey along the way. And I think the most interesting one that I think is most relevant here is how you go from I like this thing, I kind of want to learn more, right? Maybe you like doing design, or maybe you like coding a little bit, but how do you go from that being something you're interested in to that being something you can tangibly work on, right? Maybe it's releasing a product, maybe it's designing a poster, but how do you go from like that initial idea, that initial concept to something kind of coming to life, right? Because everything else that follows from it, right? whether that be getting a job at the company you like, or releasing a product to a bigger audience, or starting a company, or whatever it is, really follows the same kind of core framework. And this is something I wish people had told to me earlier. And after a while, after talking actually to James, Matt Jerlicky's son, it really started becoming apparent to me what this was. And the core of it, and it's going to sound really simple as I start to talk about it, but it is really, really, really fundamentally simple, which is, I think, the biggest thing that gets lost on us, and I'm sure the educators in the room here are going to chuckle, but is when we go to school, and this really starts to continue on through a lot of our lives, a lot of how we learn starts to fit into boxes, right? And specifically test boxes. And I'm not sure if you guys have any tests this week, but that's what starts to happen, right? You have a test for history class. Here's X, Y, and Z, and what happened. And what you maybe start to do, right, is start to prepare for that test. And where taking tests in school and learning sometimes can differ is when you want to learn, let's say, how to become a designer, right? So we'll follow my path here for a second, and we'll kind of look at the steps from when I was 11 and was playing video games after school, every week, to when I started kind of designing once a week, twice a week, to kind of doing that every day. There was a really simple transition which happened, which was I was like, I want to do more of this design stuff. I loved video games growing up. There were always like these amazing visuals. If you played any of like the Total War games, I think around, but like those were so amazing to me back then. But I just wanted to be part of that. I wanted to make those. And you go from that of like, here's a big impressive game, you pay $60 for it. But then, like, how do you get involved? Right? It seems intimidating. Like, how do I be part of that? And the core of it is really, really simple, which is Google it and then be as thorough as possible with the result. And it's that second part that gets really intense, right? And I think the core here is, and we'll talk through it, and especially once we get to questions, I want to hear a lot more, but let's say you're like, I want to design video games, right? You start with this big, vague question. And the big key skill that I think, if anyone takes away anything from me talking and blabbing for like 20 minutes, is that being able to take a big, vague idea and break it down into many smaller ideas, and being able to execute on those, little by little, is going to get you infinitely farther than any other thing I've ever learned. Because if you look at most of the big things that we'll achieve in our lives, looking back at them, they're these big, massive hills we've climbed. And if anyone here goes hiking often or climbs mountains, it's not about like looking at the mountain and saying, I'm going to climb that. It's about taking the first step and the next step and right, left, and you don't notice it by the time you've gotten to the top of the mountain. So practically, right, what does this look like? Let's say you want to learn, being a designer, right? How do you design video games? So you might go on Google, and you guys are all probably Googled stuff yourself. Unity, and you need to learn probably C++, and you need to learn 3D modeling, and you're like, wow, there's all these things, right? Like, how am I supposed to do all that? The fact is, maybe you don't, right? We actually work on a lot of like 3D game technology stuff, and it's like we have 9 people to do that. But individually, you can learn to be a big part of that and slowly start to kind of capture the whole part of that process. So for example, we're like, okay, well, I really like the art in video games. That's really attractive to me, right? So how do I do 3D art, right? So all of a sudden you're trying to break apart things. You're like, okay, here's this big thing. It looks really scary. There's a lot of different things. Let's pick one and focus on it. Let's go one level deeper. Okay. How do I do 3D art, right? So now all of a sudden, right, you might run into some blog posts, right, that are maybe written by other 3D artists. You might run into some tutorials, right, of how to use Maya, and there's a tutorial on how to do that. Okay, you're getting somewhere. But now you run into another problem, right? Okay, I don't have Maya. Maybe you Google, how to get Maya, which is software we use for the industry standard. To make 3D. You're like, oh wow, Maya is $1,600 a year, every year for one person. Well, okay, I give up. No, the right answer is maybe there's free alternatives to Maya. And turns out there are. I think everyone who I know in the industry had all had this problem when we were younger. Like, for example, when I was younger, choice. What do we do? Student code, people are friends with it, but the key was not to give up, right? Like, you're interested in this thing, finding a way to get access to it. And in the case of 3D, there's Blender, which is a completely free, like, you download it, there's no payment, there's no email, there's no nothing, alternative that works the exact same way. It's not as fancy and optimized for things, but it gets the job done, and you for sure can learn and produce assets on it. So, okay, so all of a sudden you found this tutorial, let's say, and maybe you write some blog posts, but you want to be, this really, really good reader of, like, really trying to pick apart this problem of always, like, here's this smaller goal, and, like, I can directly see how I can achieve that. So, okay, so we've gone, right, I want to make video games, to, okay, maybe I should start with 3D art, to, okay, here's a tutorial on how to make, like, a head in Maya. Okay, I can't do Maya. Let's find, how do I get Maya? All of them are broken down like one big problem, right? Okay, let's get Blender. All of a sudden, the one thing we do as managers feel good, and the answer is giving them a lot of small wins, because when you have a lot of small wins, that's the top. I don't know what's going on. When you're stuck in a you get stuck now, you get stuck later. Everyone gets stuck. It's just part of the process. You get to laugh, enjoy it, but when we look at when we get stuck is, okay, well, I was able to, personally for me, like, when I get stuck, that's fundraising. Like, well, I raised the money for this one, I run before that, and before that. Every single time I felt stuck or confused or not going to make it out. All three of those times. But here we are, fourth time, feeling that way again. And I'm probably going to get rid of it. And, just think about it and kind of figure out what this small thing I can bite off and do. And that's the exact attitude now, 6 months later from that fundraising process. It happened. I think the same thing happened in the other side, right? Let's say you're on this tutorial, you get stuck, it's difficult, you're really, the head, it's just not making sense, right? So maybe the answer is, well, maybe don't make the head, right? Maybe make it two, right? Maybe that's the answer. And I think that's just the big core thing that I want to kind of start off with, and then really dive into some of your stories of something you're trying to work through, some big idea you're and really this is the big methodology that kind of changed everything, was taking something really big, making it smaller and bite size, and finding the action to you, right? Because sometimes you'll read on a blog post, right? Well, and go and start a new job there and learn as much as you can, and you're like, well, that's not relevant to me. I'm 13. I can't move to a new city, right? Like, my parents are expecting me for dinner, and that isn't relevant for you. And the key is trying to carve a path in a world that isn't explicitly meant for you. That's something you'll run into, but I wouldn't let that dissuade you. Like, throughout my life, they're like, oh, you need to get a credit score, you're in the department. And I'm like, great. They don't give you a credit score until you're 18, more or less. And you're like, you're at this impasse. And there's one option, which is, okay, well, that's the case, fine, I don't fit into the box, I guess I'm not going to have a place to stay. Or the other one, and it's easier when it's the place you have to stay because you're incentivized to kind of get a move on. is, okay, well, how am I going to figure this out? How can I convince someone? Well, what smaller piece can I shoot? Can I show you my bank statements to show you that I can afford to live here? Can I give you a reference, right? And starting to kind of come up with alternatives. And I think that's, back to that situation of, well, this article says if you want to be a 3D artist, move to another city and get a job at an early stage startup where you can like learn from someone. I'm like, okay, I can't do that. But maybe during the summer, if I have like some 3D art I've made, and I can put it on like a Squarespace website, really easy service for most people to put websites together. Maybe then I can go show, the local game studio, right? Maybe there's a local game studio in your city, or in a bigger city nearby. It's like, okay, maybe I can tell them, can I intern for you guys this summer? The one big thing I would say is most people are more open to things than you would think, but you just have to ask, right? And asking when you've been really thoughtful about it, like I get emails every now and then from people who spent a lot of time thinking. And they're like, hey, look, been a big fan of the product. I use it every day. I'm a designer. Here's some of my work. Would love to intern for you guys. And our intern, she's starting this summer, reached out exactly that way. Didn't go through the job posting, didn't do anything. She just finished high school, and is going to like UT Austin later this year. But all she did was she just asked, and she kind of put the work on herself. I looked on her portfolio. There aren't like a bunch of jobs she had before, but she went and was like, well, I'm going to do a mobile app, and went and learned how to do the whole thing. Right? There was no guide, there was no book, there was no course, and they certainly do exist, and they work really well for people. But I think the biggest thing you can take away is you don't need anyone to let you do that, right? If you have access to Google and you have time at a computer, you can find out a lot of things. Not everything, but almost everything. And the reality is, and this is a really funny joke that I think didn't make sense to me in the beginning, is you'll look at these tech companies, right? Like Facebook or Google, and they're these big, esteemed and amazing places, that are so impressive if you work at. But if you actually go, and I happen to have a lot of friends who work there, and we have the engineers who work at our company, and you think they're these wizards who know everything, and how could you possibly ever know so many things? And the reality is, what you do at work almost every day, if you work as an engineer at Facebook, is Google a lot of things. That's basically it. Like it's slightly more complicated than that, but let's say you're like, oh, we're going to launch a new product that's like a video app for iPhone. You just would go on this website called Stack Overflow, for example, and like search up like different code snippets, and it's a lot of Googling. It's the same process that they did when they were learning. They do when they're doing it, at one of the highest stages in the world. And I think that's the core thing to take away, right? It sounds really simple. You might be like, why'd they wake this guy up at like 5 in the morning here to like have me tell it? But honestly, 8-9 years later from when I started doing this, if there was anything that like I noticed happening time and time again that like helped me achieve what I wanted, it was that. I'll give you an example. We were hiring a bunch of people at the company right now, and we wanted to make job postings. We hadn't done job postings for 3D artists at all, ever. I'd never worked at a game company. I'd never hired one before. We didn't know what to do. So we just Googled like 3D artist job posting. Okay. What makes a good job posting? Okay. Job posting guides for early stage startups. 15 blog posts come up. Read every single one of them. And I think you just have to be this voracious consumer of information. And if you just really read just a ton, and not just read, because you can read a lot of things, but then not do anything with that, that doesn't do you any good. So just reading things and then doing the things that you kind of find when you read, and using the reading to inform and be like, okay, based off what I've read, here's probably the next smaller goal I can do, and then trying to tackle that. And if you succeed, reading some more, finding the next goal. And if you don't, okay, how do I change that goal to something where I can actually do it, right? Maybe it's setting the scale smaller, right? Now it's too much for me to chew. Let's find something smaller. Maybe it wasn't the right one. Maybe you try the 3D art, let's say in that example, and you don't like it, right? This actually happened to me. I wanted to be a 3D artist when I was younger. I didn't want to do what I'm doing now. Very happy I am. But I thought I wanted to make like 3D animations. And then I tried it and absolutely hated it. And ironically, now enough, I hired people to do that. And we'll joke, like, yeah, I could not do what you do. So then maybe, you'd go and try doing like the engineering stuff. You'd be like, introduction to game development. And maybe you're like, oh, I really love this. And you're really like, clearing through those small goals really, really fast. And you're like, okay, that's a better path for me. And I think it's just the ability to adapt and just don't ever get stuck. And if you get stuck, find another way. Back up, go to the right, go to the left. But whatever you do, don't stand still. Because if you stand still, then you'll look, oh, like I've been stuck on this one thing for 6 months. And the longer it goes, right, like you just won't, you'll always believe that it's stuck that way. And the fact of the matter is most things are never really truly stuck. But yeah, and with that being said, I would love to kind of hear any kind of stories of maybe you're working on something and you're stuck on something and you want to know, how can I get unstuck? We'd love to kind of hear different stories of what people are working on.
Okay, Dan, you can hear me all right?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. Okay, yes, I always like talking to Daniel because I think I talk fast and then I get around Daniel and I'm like, we're even. Like I might be able to keep up a little bit. It's okay. So hopefully some of you, we've been tweeting out his bio and some other things that he's done. He's starting 3 different businesses by the time he is here. I have a couple questions that I would ask him, but is there anything that he said that any of you like sparked something or that you heard that you're like, wait a minute, can you clarify that for me? Okay, and don't worry, I know it's early and this is not a pop quiz. Okay, so, all right, Daniel, you talked about that it is true that Google can get you started. Like really, like you can pretty much Google anything you want. So for our audience here, which is kind of pertinent for them, at some point though, in your journey here, you have to start convincing adults of things, whether that's, to get some financing, to let you, like you said, to miss dinner, with parents, for example, or, what do you mean you're going to rent this space or things like that? Or you need to buy, some expensive hardware, maybe. What could you share with the students here that, like, in working with us adults, some like tips, pointers, something that, hey, we would like to do this at our school. I would like to do this as an individual that might help them accomplish something like that.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Biggest thing that convincing others, which at the end of the day is what a lot of things boil down to, right? Especially the bigger scale you want to make something, like it comes down to convincing other people, adults and otherwise. And the biggest thing you can do is number one, demonstrate past performance. And what that means, right, is, let's say you're trying to convince your parents to get you Photoshop. Let's say you've been doing a lot of design stuff in first, let's say Microsoft Paint, and then maybe using, what was the other? There was another program that was like another free, cheaper one, or maybe that was $5. And you've kind of like gone along through that, and you're facing this wall of everything you want to do past that requires Photoshop. All the tutorials are in Photoshop. Everything kind of centers around that. And you're a kid, maybe you probably don't work, right? That's probably a thing. So it's like, well, where do I get the money to go buy this thing? And if you just went to your parents being like, hey, like I want Photoshop, and they say no, right? That very, very well might be the scenario. But if you're like, hey, look, here's all the things I've made in the 6 months, and here's the thing I want to do next, which, by the way, is really the same process as how we raise money for our companies, right? And the scale there is really different, but it's the same process. It's here's what we've done as a team for the last 6 months, and we basically make a PowerPoint presentation. We did this and we started with that, and 6 months later we'd done 20 of those, and now we need X to do Y, right? Now we need your money to hire more people and build the next version of the product, or now I need my allowance advanced 10 weeks so I can buy Photoshop. because it's going to better me as a person. And that might not be parents, it might be school administrators, right? Maybe you want to put on like a club for other people who are learning how to build things in your school, and you need to have one of the fluids off, right? So that might be the case. And I think that the whole big thing is the better you can tell your story, maybe that's slides, maybe that's showing past examples, but humans are really visual people, and adults are also humans too. You guys might find out later as you become them. But like the big thing is if you can show, hey, look, I did this in the past, and this is what I want to do in the future, and here's how you can help unlock that for me. Generally, most people are going to be willing to help, especially if the need is pretty reasonable. And the more strongly you can convey, like, here's why what I've done in the past or what we've done in the past really helps justify the investment, whether that be someone's time, right? The same, analogy works for, there's a really talented designer and you want to meet her because she's going to help tell you a bit more about, how to kind of progress with your hobby. Asking her, hey, here's all the things I've done. I want like an hour of your time, to go to coffee with you. Can you do that? Like you're asking for a pretty meager thing, having a lot of justification. Most people are going to say yes, especially in this industry, because like the one thing that is really common here is people are always willing to help. And there's this big culture of paying it forward. Because I remember when I was in middle school, we also had speakers come in and share their experience. And to me, that was one of my favorite parts of assemblies. Sometimes it was just school announcements, and I didn't find that interesting. But I found the speakers really interesting. And this is my part of doing that, but everyone does that in this industry. James Matt's son did that to me. I remember I was looking for jobs like 6-7 years ago, and James was like, "Hey, come work at my company." And ever since then, we've become much closer, and it happens all the time. And every single person, there's not a person I don't know in this industry who that hasn't happened to.
All right, Daniel, we've got to wrap it up here, and we want to be very cognizant of your time. So give us the 1 minute where we can find you, what you're working on, and what you hope to see on all of our devices here soon.
Yeah, I mean, so the brief gist of what we're working on, and this comes out early next year, is we're making the kind of movie inside of your head come to life. So this year we're letting you feature in your own Pixar movie. So let's say you went to the mall the other day and something really funny happened at Chick-fil-A. Like, you're gonna be able to say that, and a Pixar movie involving you and your animated self is going to be created from that, and you just tell it the same way you would tell a friend using your voice. We have a small version of that available on the App Store already. So that's just, if you search up Panda on the App Store, it's the purple panda with the white or purple background with the white panda. And if you want to hear me ramble about stupid things on the internet, I tend to do that on Twitter. It's just my name, @DanielSinger. But yeah, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well. If you didn't have the chance to ask one here, or you ever want to reach out, I'm always open to talk to people. You can just send me a direct message, and I'll try my best to respond as quick as possible. But yeah, would love to kind of help anyone if they have anything kind of one-on-one.
Got it. All right, Daniel, thank you for waking up early. I greatly appreciate it. Concord appreciates it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you, man.
Yeah.